3 SAR cases, back to back to back, during just 2 weeks deployed to Great Inagua. In this short window, one crew saved 9 lives, 8 of them in just 17 hours. 2 Bahamian men pulled from the sea after 6 days adrift with no food or water. Hours later, 6 sailors hoisted from life rafts after their vessel went down. This is what search and rescue looks like on the edge. Welcome to the Real ResQ Podcast. We are proud to be part of Vertical Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Magazines, recording alongside the Hangar Z Podcast, the Helicopter Podcast, Valor Flight Crew Podcast, and Vertical MRO Podcast. Check all these platforms out at verticalhelicast.com. We have real voices, real stories, and a real commitment to the professional excellence. And a thank you to our sponsors that helped make this episode happen. Axness, their mission, wireless intercom. Check them out today at axness.com. Blue Drop Training and Simulation. Innovative training and interactive technologies. Check them out at bluedropts.com. Spectral Lab, a Boeing company. 50 years of high-intensity lighting solutions. Check them out at spectrallab.com. Ready Bar. 1 bar equals 1 meal. This can go in any bag that you travel with a 2-year expiration. Use the promo code RESQ10 at getreadybar.com to save 10%. And if you want to help support this podcast further, you can go to the realrescuestore.com to get your swag today. Now it's time to get into this episode with the United States Coast Guard flight crew out of Clearwater, Florida, as they share details of an unforgettable deployment. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Scott Kellerman, Mr. Sam Lowe, Mr. Zach Conzi, and Mr. Mike Hernan. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. I am beyond excited to announce that we have a crew from the United States Coast Guard with me, and they have earned the Vertical Magazine's Blades of Valor recognition. Gentlemen, congratulations. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Quinn.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Hey, and this is really cool because you guys are going to talk about only a 2-week deployment and what you guys did in that 2-week deployment to earn this. It's a bunch of lives saved. It's cool. It's cool. I dig it. And I'm excited to get into the details of these stories. So let me introduce you guys. So we had the pilot in command while you guys were down there, Mr. Scott Kellerman. We've got the SIC there, Sam Lowe. And we got the flight back on this in particular deployment, Zach Conzi, and our rescue swimmer, Mike Hernan. Thank you so much for joining me. So here is what I understand is that you guys did a 2-week deployment down to where?
We were in Great Inagua, Bahamas. So our air station supports Operations Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, which is a law enforcement, search and rescue, coalition mission with the government of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. Border security, integrity, we do law enforcement, and search and rescue is also one of our missions that we do when we're deployed down there. Crews go down there for 2-week trips, and we have one H-60 deployed 24/7, 365 in that deployment site on that island. So it's a Coast Guard facility that we maintain down there.
That's awesome. So I have not been stationed in Clearwater. I was up in Kodiak. So I do know the deployment side. We'd go 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, and then you'd end up back in Kodiak. So you guys, I imagine same thing. Like crew goes down, deploys, you guys live together, hang out together for 2 weeks, and then you go back to kind of normal ops.
That's right. Yeah, and
Right
a
on.
big unit like here, that's like the one time you really get to know folks at the unit, because there's like 530 people that are based at Clearwater, so it's real easy to go flying with somebody. I'll go fly with somebody today, and either the BA or the potentially the mech I've never even flown with before, because there's just so many people. So when you go on a trip like this, the people that you end up knowing best at the air station are the people that you deploy with.
Right on. That's a lot bigger than Kodiak. I knew everybody at Kodiak because it wasn't that big. But 500, how many? This is crazy.
530. That's including Ox, but still, it's pretty big. Yeah.
It's a big. That's a lot of people there. That's pretty cool. I don't think I knew that. Look at me. I'm learning today. This is good stuff. All right. So you guys get down into this deployment, and what I understand is there were 3 missions that you guys got called out pretty much back to back to back, but 2 of them specifically over a 17-hour period where you guys had 8 lives saved. Man. Okay. Scott, bring us in just what happened, and let's go.
So on the deployment, like you mentioned, in that 17-hour period, that first case that we got, we were actually on a scheduled patrol. We were going over to stop over, get gas over at Naval Air Station Guantanamo. And on our way there, on our flight over there was a report that there were 2 men that had gone adrift on a small fishing vessel, single engine fishing vessel that had just run out of gas. Estimated somewhere between 60 to 80 miles away from Ackland's Island, in the kind of middle of the Bahamas, and had gone missing for upwards of about 5 to 6 days. So we kind of heard that chatter, but we hadn't been officially tasked on the case, but it was kind of all in the back of our minds that this was probably going to happen. So we had landed, we shut down, got gas. And then while we were there getting lunch, it was kind of funny. Logistically, it's kind of a hurdle to get back and forth, because where you go for lunch is on the other side of the base across a channel. So you have to take a ferry. So we were on the other side. What? And we got the call. Yeah. It's like, and they run every hour. But we were on the other side. And then as soon as we had finished lunch, they're like, okay, this is happening. We're like, well, shoot, the next ferry isn't for like another hour. So fortunately, one of the small like port security unit teams with the Navy were able to call them, and we were able to jump on their fast boat and then race across the channel, get back over to our helicopter. May or may not have taken one of the kind of take a penny, leave a penny GVs that were sitting in the lot. Got back up over to where the aircraft was. Let them know that we borrowed a GV, and then got to the aircraft.
That'd be a government vehicle, by the way. Help out.
Yeah, but we were doing the King's business, so no hard feelings. But because of the distance, it was an hour transit just to get back to where our base was in Great Inagua. So after that, it was how far was that, Sam? About another hour and a half just to get up to the on scene fish area. So we got some gas. So we got a few more details. We got gas in Great Inagua. And then blasted up to where the search area was. While that was going on, a CASA HC-144 out of Air Station Miami was on scene and searching. And about halfway on our way there, they spotted the vessel, and they acted as our top cover and vectoring us in. The crazy thing about that was, even though they had eyes on them, it wasn't until we were probably within a half mile of where the guys were at that we actually spotted them, because the swells, it was such a small boat, and the winds were ripping in the swells. It was like a blue holed open panga, so really hard to spot. But we spotted him once we came on scene. Mike deployed, got his operational free fall in, so he's pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, buddy.
So we got on scene, assessed, looked at those guys, trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And I think we both came to agreement, and kind of in the back of our mind, we're like, these guys have been without potentially food or water for multiple days on end. So we were prepping, because we always, when we're down there, it's kind of a survival situation if we go down on one of the islands. So we have MREs, we have lots of water with us, but we brought a lot of extra stuff for hydration and food. Just when we got them on board, we knew that was going to be a priority. So Zach and Mike were already prepping the cabin for just giving that stuff to them as soon as they got into the aircraft. But we elected to do free fall mostly just to stay away from their boat, because we didn't want to create any more havoc on them than had already been dealt with. So Mike did the free fall to then swim up to the guys and see how they were doing.
All right. So, Sam, I got to come to you first. Before we kick Mike into the water yet, we got to go through some checklists. So what's going through your head? You're seeing a couple of guys on a little dinghy.
Yeah. Before I get into that, I think the funniest part of the whole deployment was, I was obviously Scott's co-pilot at the time, but all of my cases, I was pretty dry with SAR and operations back here in Clearwater. So as we were heading down on the deployment, I joked, I was like, hey guys, you guys ready to have a good deployment, have fun? And Scott jokingly said, I don't ever get anything down in GI. So nothing's going to happen. Right? And I was like, well, that's where all of my cases come from. So, I think it's going to be a pretty good deployment. And right off the bat, it was just hot and heavy. So, I think it's the funniest part of the whole deployment was, Scott kind of set the tone, like, this is going to be boring, man. Nothing's going to happen. And it was crazy. But yeah, getting on scene.
Nice.
Yeah, like Scott said, we were like looking for the boat, and the Costa was. I think that at some point they were kind of getting frustrated. Like, how do you guys not see the boat? You're almost right on top of them. They didn't say that, but you can tell they were like just kept vectoring us and stuff. And like Scott said, the swells were just kind of engulfing the boat, so we couldn't really make it out until we got right on top of it. But yeah, we did our normal checklist, our hoist brief. Obviously no comms with the vessel, so we couldn't do a vessel brief or anything like that. But we talked about the risks associated, and that's that's kind of where we got to free fall deployment of Mike. It's kind of the perfect scenario. That's one of those things that it's one of the more restrictive things we do. Free falls, got to be day only. So getting Mike out the door fast was kind of our priority. Something I don't know if Scott touched on it, what he was just saying, but the report we got from the CASA was that they had tried to drop a radio and some supplies to these guys because, the report was these guys had been out at sea for about 6 days with no food, with no food and water or whatever they took with them when they went out on this trip, And so the report was that we tried to drop, the CASA tried to drop them a radio, and then it got, I don't know the exact distance, but fairly close to the boat. And the guys just kind of looked at it and then just didn't even attempt to try to go get it. So it kind of spoke to how lethargic those guys were, wow. And how dehydrated and guys kind of starving. Didn't have any food on them. So these guys were in pretty rough shape. So kind of having that in the back of our minds, just like what Scott said, Mike and Zach did a great job grabbing extra MREs, knowing these guys were going to need some food. They grabbed hydration packets. But with that in the back of our mind, we're like let's be as efficient as we can with our time. Mike was ready to go. Zach was ready to go. So, ran through our checklist, efficiently, quick, and then got Mike out the door with the free fall. So that was pretty awesome.
All right, Zach, I got to come to you real quick. You're getting ready because Mike's getting changed over there. He's getting into his swimmer gear. I get it. What are you doing in the back of the cabin? How are you preparing for these guys?
I was getting all the MREs ready. We had mac and cheese, lasagna. Yeah, we did. We had like 40 bottles of water. We had some liquid IV electrolytes, stuff like that. I was getting all that ready for them because, you could tell they were real thirsty and tired on that boat for, 6 days.
That's freaking awesome. All right, Mike, first operational free fall deployment coming out of the helicopter. Run us through it, man.
Yeah. Once we finally found them, we had talked about deployment strategies and we all came to an agreement. Let's do a free fall. So obviously, as a swimmer, that's what we want to do. Especially out there. It's big blue ocean. Don't have to worry about water depth out there. There was no debris. So why not? Gets me out the door faster. Deployed out and swam up to him. And right away, as I'm grabbing the side of the boat, I guess the captain of the boat, the owner of the boat, was just yelling at me like, water, we need water. And I'm like, I know, man. So I pull myself up and I glance over to the left to look at the other guy. I'm trying to make, contact with them to see how they are physically. And the other guy was just laying down, not really paying attention. He was out of it. He was really bad. They had a tarp over their boat too, which made it harder for us to find them as well. There was a bunch of holes in it, so it wasn't intact, but it created shade for them at least, allowed them to survive for the 6 days. Because if they were just out there without any sort of shade, no water, no food, they would have been way worse off. So I opted to grab the guy that wasn't really coherent. I asked him. They didn't have any any life jackets. They didn't really have anything. They were just going out for a fishing, a quick fishing day, and they ran out of gas and they just started drifting for 6 days. So,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. So I grabbed him. He was a bigger dude too. Pulled him in the water and just, gave him the quick brief. Like, hey, it's going to be loud. Just stay calm. I got you. I'm going to put you in a basket. Keep your hands on your knees. And got him in. He went up. And there's a really cool picture of Zach reaching down and like he's reaching up. And it's pretty cool if you haven't seen it.
It definitely is. It screams like Go Coast Guard.
Yeah.
Embodies that.
Yeah. I was going to say go Zach, but whatever. That's cool. I love it.
Worst of the two, up in the helicopter first, and then Zach immediately hands him a bottle of water with some electrolytes in it, and then I swim back to the boat, grab the other guy, make sure like, hey, do you have any personal belongings you need to bring with you? And that didn't even dawn on them. Like they thought like we were going to salvage their boat too, which was another conversation I had before I pulled them out of the boat was, hey, what are we going to do with my boat? Like, we'll figure it out, but I need to get you out of here and out of the elements and into the helicopter. So we got the information, location of their boat and passed it along. But once we got both of them in the helicopter, I bear hooked back up, and then Zach and I were just working with them, feeding them, making sure they had plenty of water. But I was also coaching them like, hey, don't chug this because you're just going to throw it back up. So I was telling them just little sips. And they understood. So yeah, that was a good one. Glad we were able to find them, and thank goodness we had help from the CASA. Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right, Zach, I'm going to come back to you real quick. You're hoisting these guys up. So first of all, nice way to kick Mike out of the door. That was great. Mike, I am really excited that it's your first operational free fall. Get some. Oh, that's exciting. All right, so Zach, when you're hoisting these guys up, I get it, man. Looking down, their eyes are glued on you coming into the cabin.
Oh yeah.
Give us a run. Just kind of run us through it. How did it look for you?
I mean, I'm bringing the first guy up, and we're trained to stick our hands out the door so they don't spin and knock their head on the bottom side of the aircraft. But people assume that I'm reaching down for their hand, so he grabbed my hand. I was like, "All right, I'll take it." And that's where we got the picture.
That's awesome.
That's the 360 going on the cabin door.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I pulled them up, and they had a hard time getting on the basket. They were so tired and dehydrated and hungry. But I got the first guy out, gave him some water, made him some food. I forgot what it was. It was some MRE, macaroni and cheese of sorts, something like that. The second guy was just as bad as the first guy. They were both super tired. There's one I'm handing him a bottle of water and he can barely drink it. He was so tired. Once we got water in him, they were in way better shape than when we found them.
Oh man, nice job, you guys. All right, so we get Mike back up into the cabin. Cabin door comes closed and locked. And Sam, you're like, on-scene checklist or departure checklist. Let's go, and let's get back to where.
Yeah, well, before you get to that, just kind of want to piggyback off what Mike just said. Scott's a really talented videographer, and we were very fortunate to have him with us on this case because not only did he capture in real time like what was going on, but he got some really good footage of like what the Coast Guard does, that kind of stuff. So my favorite part of the video that he made was that second guy that Mike brought up, and then Zach brought into the cabin. You could tell like Zach brings the basket into the cabin and kind of hands him a water bottle. And you just see his whole body just kind of like sink into the basket. Like he just kind of felt this like overwhelming relief of this like, I'm safe, And like whenever I watch the video, it's just like, it kind of rings home exactly like why we do this. And, that was just a whole team effort from Mike, going down there, bringing him out of the water, and then Zach bringing up into the aircraft. I mean, it was just like, that's exactly why we do it. It was such a rewarding feeling. But
Sam, you just gave me chills. I want to thank you for that.
Yeah,
I love what we do. I love what we do.
I know, it's amazing. And it's just cases like that just like really, it's one of those ones where you just sit back and like, that was awesome. That was just exactly why we do this. And if people haven't seen that video, I highly recommend like checking that out. Scott did a great job. But yeah, it's just like And of course, he made it dramatic at the right time. Slow mo as the guy's just sinking into the basket. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, after cabin doors closed, obviously we know Mike and Zach are just doing what they got to do back there. They run the cabin in the back, and up front, we just start working through our checklist to get up and away. And we got direction that the best place to take them would be back to their spot on the Acklands where they were from in the Bahamas. So we started making best speed to get back over there. I did all the hoisting, so Scott did all the flying back to the Acklands. The Casa escorted us back, so they kind of hung out with us until we got
nice
safe back to the Acklands. So yeah, like I said, it was one of those cases where it was all around. It was awesome. Great job for everyone.
That's pretty cool.
And I'll drive home. When we landed, we transferred the gentleman to the police force that was there just to help them out. But just to show like how rough shape those guys were, I jumped out just to take some pictures and help them get those guys out of the aircraft and over to them. It looked like somebody hadn't used their legs in a year. They jello their legs when as soon as they hit the ground, they needed to be propped up because they were so weak. You could have just pushed on them like with your index finger and they would have like wilted. That's how just terribly rough shape they were. So it was, they were another day. That probably would had a much different outcome had we not been there. So.
Dang, well done, you guys. Hey, kind of side note question. The boat, you marked the position of the boat. The boat's now empty and just kind of drifting out there. My own kind of thinking about how to mark it. Was there any other ideas about or reasons to mark that boat at all? Like drop an EPIRB or take the DMB or something like that and be like, here, let's just keep this here and let it go. Or is just mark the position, let it know everybody's good, and then roll out.
I think the overwhelming urge of getting those guys out of there because of how rough shape, that definitely became the priority. There's definitely been instances where we've all done SAR where we could think about the prioritization for their boat, but I think we were so concerned about their well-being that getting them out of there and getting them to higher care. So Mike did the best he could of marking. We reported back the position. And a lot, also for just kind of like a navigation hazard for folks out there. But yeah, it was definitely the shape that they were in. It was, we need to get these guys out of here as quick as we can. So, definitely not the amount of time we normally want to spend to try to kind of close the loop on the vessel, but best we could with the time and resources we had at the time.
I like it. Dang, guys, well done. 2 lives saved right off the get-go. Way to make it a good deployment already, huh? That's right, yeah. Sam. You called it. Okay, but you're not done yet. You're not done. Within the next... Yeah, so now you guys, get back, you kind of reset the cabin, reset the aircraft, do a little post-flight inspection, gas her up, and then what happens? We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
SpectroLab. SpectroLab, a pioneer and world-leading supplier of high-intensity searchlights for all para-public operations. Visit www.spectrolab.com to learn more about our 3rd generation Night Sun series high-intensity searchlight. When reliability and performance is critical to your mission, count on SpectroLab Night Sun searchlights.
So yeah, we gassed up, we went to bed, and then I got the duty phone at about 4:30 in the morning from our command center saying that there was a report of an EPIRB going off, registered to a 100-foot sailing vessel, registered to a French sailing vessel called the Gallant. And that was the only information. And it just so happened the location of the vessel was only 20 miles north of the island that we were deployed to. So kind of walking that back, we had seen, it was that morning, or the day before on our way out to go to Guantanamo, we saw that boat sailing around the island, 100-foot boat, a bunch of people on there waving. So we knew what the boat had looked like. So when we heard that, we're like, oh man, this is going to be, if we're going to have to hoist this thing, there's, all the stanchions and stuff that are going down. Like, I don't know how we're going to get somebody down to this vessel with all that rigging. So that's initially what we were talking about. Like the first discussion when I woke everyone up was trying to figure out, while they're getting the plane ready to go, how are we going to do this hoist? So that a lot of that conversation and risk discussion was just that.
I know we plotted as soon as, we got the call on the launch, one of the first things we do is we plot the position, see exactly where it's at. And, literally Scott and I are looking at the iPad as we plot it, and there's just this giant thunderstorm that's just like engulfed the location. Well, it makes sense, So at that point, we're kind of keying up, like, they're in bad weather, something could be going on out there. So it just added to, they're definitely in a spot where it could be in a bad situation.
Sometimes, EPIRBs go off, and sometimes it's just an accidental activation, but there was definitely correlation to what was going on to the report that we had received. We took off. Sam was again in the right seat, and as we're getting out there doing our checklist, right as we're just getting into the search area, we see 2 red flares shoot off in the distance, which in my entire career, I can count on like one hand where I've seen like what you see in the movies, where you see actually somebody shoot off a flare gun, and we see flares go off. We're like, holy smokes, like this is, and we have the direction finder needles going towards that position. But sure enough, 2 flares go off. As we start getting closer, we start to resolve what we're seeing, and all we see is 2 like the larger rafts linked together, and there's 6 people on board between the 2 rafts.
Big debris field.
Big debris field all around to where they're at. Parts and pieces of this boat.
Yeah.
So the boat is like non-existent, like gone.
Just debris. Yeah. That's it.
My gosh.
The cell had passed through, so like you could tell it had been really violent just before we had shown up, like an hour before, but it was just flat calm again, like after a thunderstorm has come through and completely dissipated. So you just see 2 rafts, 6 people, star shells go off, go. What do you want to do? So that's setting up the scene.
Shit.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think the craziest thing was, like Scott said, we knew what the boat was. So, we saw the name. We were like, oh, we saw that yesterday. Big 100-foot boat, 2-masted sailing schooner. So it's just like, we should see that boat from at least, coming out at 500, 600 feet. We should see that from at least, 12, 15 miles away. And so, it was, I think the crazy part looking back on it was, and I don't know if your listeners all know what like an annual SAR check is, but what we do every year is we do what's called an annual search and rescue check. As Coast Guard pilots, we need to make sure that, we're staying up to standard. And in one flight, you try to pack in all of the, things that you could experience, out on the SAR case. You're tracking via like our direction finder, so EPIRBs and all that kind of stuff. You're simulating, you've got PIWs, you've got all this kind of stuff. And it's always like kind of like a funny flight, because like, how would this really happen in real life? Like all this stuff comes together in one case, And the craziest part was we take off out of GI immediately, the DF needle hits, so we're tracking the DF out. We're like, that's good sign, right? We're getting a good hit on the DF. And then we're about, I'd say 12 miles out, and Scott and I are kind of talking. We're like, how do we not see this boat? They're 12 miles out. And it was almost like, as we said that, the first flare goes up and we're like, oh, this kind of, kind of crazy. And so, we, speed up a couple extra knots as much as we can get the helicopter to go, as we start to the I guess, seriousness of the case kind of turns up,
Yeah.
We're like 4 miles out. And at this point, it's just 2 rafts in the water. So you can't see that from very far out. And again, we're kind of like, how do we not see this boat like 4 miles out, 5 miles out? Second flare goes up and we're like, what is that? And at that point, Scott saw where the second flare came from. And he kind of called, he's like, oh, we got 2 rafts in the water. And at that point, we're like, oh, wow, people in rafts. So it's just kind of crazy, all this stuff that, kind of joke about, like, how would this stuff all happen in one SAR case? It's like, it happened for us. So it's pretty crazy.
Man, awesome. Holy cow. All right, Zach, I got to bring it to you. You're prepping the cabin for another deployment in the hoist. Let's go. What are we doing?
I mean, so originally Sam knocked on my door at I think it was 5 a.m., something like that. He knocks on my door and he's like, Zach, go to EPIRB. And I was like, okay, so it's probably some guy's EPIRB going off on his pleasure boat by accident. We're going to go out there, I'm going to turn it off, and that'll be it. We got out there and we saw the flares going off, and we all got kind of, hyped up for that. And then we saw the 2 rafts, there's 6 people in them. That's 6 people will be a lot in our cabin, plus me and Mike. So we just kind of got on scene, assessed it. We did I think it was a harness deployment, right?
Yeah.
Harness deployment and Mike down. And then from there, we just ripped the 6 hoist pretty efficiently. But yeah, I'll let Mike.
I assuming basket hoist.
Yeah,
all basket. Yeah.
And we'll back up kind of what led up to
Okay.
those hoists and everything that had kind of happened.
All right, Mike, bring it in. Hoist down to the water. You got debris everywhere. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what's funny is like we just did this really cool SAR case, saved 2 lives, and then Sam knocks on both our doors and like, hey, we got an EPIRB. Like in my head, I'm like, all right, back home, maybe, but out here, I mean, seems legit. So I immediately just changed out in my wetsuit, considering how close it was too. Like it's only 20 miles north of us, so. So we get on scene again. I was on the EOIR just scanning, trying to find them. And then all of us were like, where are these guys? This boat was huge. And then, flares. And then we do a circle around them, see 6 people in 2 rafts. And then these super vibrant, Gumby suits too. Nice, bright yellow, like very visible. Once we're, on scene. And they asked me like, all right, Mike, what do you want to do deployment wise? And in my head, I was like, let's do another free fall. but then tons of debris in here. So opted to do the harness down, safer option. Disconnect, swim up to them, pull myself into the first raft, and immediately go into kind of a language barrier. They're French, but the captain of the vessel spoke pretty good English and would translate back and forth between the other raft and himself when I was asking questions on what happened and, injuries, people missing. Once I established comms with them and realized the 6 in the 2 rafts were good, no injuries. They were safe. The rafts were in good condition. They had flotation on. The captain informed me that 2 people were missing. And they had PLBs attached to them though. And on the way out, we kind of thought we were getting 2 hits. Mm-hmm. So in my head, I was like, oh, so this, and they had their PLB, they secured it. And then I radioed back up to the helicopter. I was like, hey, these guys are fine. I'm going to leave them here. We got to go search for 2 more. And there's 2 missing. So I jump back in the water. I tell them like, you guys we'll be right around you. You guys won't lose sight of us. We're going to go search for your other 2. And they were like, yes, please go find them. So I jump back.
Holy cow, dude.
Yeah. So as a crew, we came together like, yeah, we need to go start searching for these 2 missing people. So I bear hook back up, and then Zach and I were just like in the door. I've never looked so hard for somebody. As we start doing our search patterns, and we started getting another hit, I believe. I don't know if you guys can jog my memory on this, but we're zigzagging through all the debris and stuff, and then there's a EPIRB in the water. So I get lowered back down, I grab it.
It was the actual vessel's EPIRB.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Oh, yeah, wow.
So it detached the way it was supposed to and floated to the surface. So yeah, we DF'd it, and that was the second signal. Yeah. But for the longest time, we're like, okay, maybe this is the other people.
Right.
But it was just the vessels, because the rafts, they had theirs, and then the vessel's EPIRB had separated and moved away from them, and that's what we were hitting for kind of the spurious hits. But yeah, so we deployed Mike back down. He grabbed the EPIRB, secured it, and then we kept searching. In the background, I was communicating back up to our command center just to let them know like the scale of what was going on, and that this, like, we needed help because we needed fixed wing assets to search people from Florida, because we were down there pretty far away. So for this to continue, like, other resources needed to come down. But we gave it about almost a 2-hour search trying to find something, and we did find 2 of those lime green Gumby suits just floating at the surface. So what we had later found out was that they were, when they were sailing through the night, it was kind of just a night crew, 2 people. Most of their hatches were open on the vessel when they were sailing, and a squall, like a thunderstorm, just popped up out of nowhere, started dumping rain, wind. The configuration of the vessel was not set up for heavy seas and heavy weather, and it just overtook the boat in like 10 to 15 minutes, and the boat sunk. So people were scrambling to just rip open their Gumby suits, get it on, and get out of there because the boat was sinking so fast. So what we later found out was that the 2 other crew members just weren't able to get their suit on all the way, and likely what had happened was that they just lost control of their suit, and got snared on the equipment from the vessel, just the mast and the sails. And it's a really it's sad where they went down there. It's the drop off of the ocean floor there. It goes from kind of shallow to 9,000 feet of water.
Holy shit!
I don't think I've kind of periodically I check in on that case to see if anybody's done a salvage of the vessel, but there's been nothing.
I mean, the spot they sank in is a little over 9,000 feet of water.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
So yeah, we searched, and I've done a lot of these searches, and I've never felt that more sinking feeling of trying to help these people, because once we finish, like at some point we're going to have to stop searching, and we're going to have to transition into picking these folks up and telling them we couldn't find your friend, couldn't find your crewmates, and have to take them back we took them back to where our base was at to start working that transfer. But it was a pretty awful feeling just knowing that, we're saving 6 people, but you're having to deliver just horrible news.
Right.
So yeah, we searched on that case for a number of days after. Different crews came down from Air Station Miami and Clearwater, searching a ton of ocean, trying to find something. But yeah, later on, so the logistics of getting them back was a little challenging, but we ended up having one of our fixed wing resources come down to meet us there, a C-27 transport plane, and they flew them back up to Miami that day. There's a French consulate there, and then the French consulate in Miami took statements, and that we later got to hear their personal testimony was translated to English, and a lot of what we're telling you right now is from that personal testimony about how fast everything happened and how chaotic and dark and just terrifying it was for the crew when it was going on.
Yeah, I think that was the crazy part. Yeah, reading their stories. I mean, just like Scott described it, they did I can't remember if it was to port or starboard first, but they did crazy list to port or starboard, and then the wind shifted. They went 70 degrees to the other side. The water just started coming in, filling up the engine room. And the captain gave the word to abandon ship, so they all ran to the stern of the boat to don their Gumby suits. And the account was that not everyone got them on all the way. Some people had them on halfway, and the bow came up like it normally does when a boat sinks, and the boat just went straight down. A couple of the people described coming up underneath the sails, so they're trying to surface underneath the sails. So that's traumatic already. And then they talked about getting to the life rafts. The seas were so violent that they had just the rope that goes around the outside of the life raft, to help you pull yourself up onto. A couple of them described that the seas were so bad they just had to hold on to that rope until the seas died down to actually climb up into the life raft. So yeah,
my gosh,
I just realized how powerful the ocean can get. And that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That feeling, you get out there, we put Mike down, you see 6 people safe in rafts, and I think Mike gave a great account of what he saw in the water, interacting with them. But our point of view in the helicopter, we're sitting there looking at 6 people in rafts. Weather's fine for us, and we kind of get this. I don't know if I want to call it a feeling of complacency, but we're kind of just this is gonna be 6 straight basket hoists, real quick. And it was just like Scott talked about that sinking feeling, hearing Mike say there's 2 people out there missing. It went from this feeling of just this is great. We're gonna hoist 6 people, get them safe, all that kind of stuff, and you just the pit of your stomach. It's crazy how fast that shifted for us.
Yeah.
Wow. Mike, I want to come back to you real quick because I have my own thoughts of what I would say as I'm going back down to the rafts to get those guys out of the raft and into the helicopter. What is it that how do you tell them hey, we've just searched the rest of the bag of gas. We got to go and you guys have to come with us. What do you tell them?
Yeah. Fortunately, we had another helicopter from Miami back at the GI hangar that was already there, no swimmer, but that we ended up, calling them to come out and help search. So as I get lowered back down, I don't really tell them like, hey, we couldn't find them. I pull myself back in onto the raft, and I'm like, hey, we got to go. I'm going to take you guys, you 6, into the helicopter, one by one. They didn't really ask me either, so I didn't have to tell them.
Nice. Okay.
So
cool.
I didn't want to just start just telling them bad news right off the bat if they didn't ask. So, and I don't know. I didn't want to tell them like we couldn't find them, because we still had a bunch of assets coming to go search.
Yeah.
Like we had a 65 coming. We had a cutter out there that was searching as well. We had a fixed wing asset coming. You had us, a cutter out there, fixed wing asset on its way. So there was still hope. So I got
sure.
on them, one by one, basket recoveries. Took the captain last. He actually opted to. And then, we're trained as rescue swimmers, like if there's still people out there, leave the rafts. I'm not going to pop them. So we opted to leave the raft, both of them out there, got all 6 in the cabin. At that point, you can see like they definitely kind of sank into their emotions and their thoughts, because you shut that cabin door and there's still 2 people out there that aren't accounted for. But as we're flying back, I'm pointing, I'm like nudging the captain because they don't have comms, and I'm pointing out the cabin door window, and you see the 65 going back out to like search more.
Oh, nice. Wow. That's great.
So it kind of gave them more hope too, so they weren't completely deflated. But we take them back to GI, we unload the cabin, they take off their Gumbies, and we kind of manage them from there, because they were there for an extended period of time for the rest of that day. We fed them what we could, got them, clothes. Some of us gave them our personal clothes because they didn't have anything.
They were sleeping, and then they went from sleeping to throwing a Gumby suit on. So they just had nothing on them.
No shoes. They had nothing.
Wow.
So, they didn't have any identification. They couldn't grab anything. That's how fast this happened.
Holy smoke.
Right. So once we got them back, we catered to their needs of, hunger and thirst, and try to keep them dry, and gave them a place to hang out until the fixed wing came and picked them up and flew them to Miami.
Damn. Zach, I'm going to come for you real quick. I got one question, and that is, you're hoisting all these guys up. You've got bright yellow suits coming up into the cabin. At one point or another, as you're bringing Mike up, like, okay, so you turn around, Mike gets in the cabin, and you have 6 dudes in bright yellow outfit Gumby suits, and then Mike, and you close the door. What is going through your head right now?
I mean, I've never had that many survivors in the cabin before, so it was pretty crowded. There was 2 of them on the ground still. The basket was still set up. I think I don't even remember where Mike was. I think he was
just sitting on. I was sitting like on the basket.
Yeah, he was sitting on the basket
against my back against the cabin door.
Yeah. I wanted to give him a bunch of water because they were pretty thirsty out there also. But me and Sam, me and him were both locked in on those hoists. I've never done more clean hoists or faster hoists, but efficiently. Yeah, it was super clean evolutions for me and Sam for sure.
Freaking badass, you guys. And I imagine, like, it's one of the things I talk about a lot on this podcast, how much training is needed and required to do what we do. And I know from my own experience how much training we in the Coast Guard, or you guys currently in the Coast Guard, do. Was there any question about any of it, or was it like just going into it like ops normal, like just getting it done?
I mean, for me, I had no doubts in our crew's capabilities of executing the mission, and I think Sam's the same way. Felt really confident in our abilities.
Yeah. I think at some point you just kind of have to, the reason we train so much, the reason we hoist so much, every day we have hoisting flights going out here to do that is, I think for that situation, obviously it was daytime, the weather wasn't terrible, but we had what was kind of hard to explain to people was like the emotional side of it, right? Like we go out there, every time we go out there and try to hoist someone, we're adrenaline's going, you're trying to help someone get out of a bad situation. And that's, I think, how we started out the case. And then those 2 hours of searching for those 2 missing crew members, it kind of was emotionally draining for us, like every piece of debris we found in the water, we thought it was them, so for us, and I remember the 6 hoists that we did, being fairly quiet, it was only essential comms. It was very like cut and dry, very robotic. And I think that was a result of us just being like, there's this back of your head feeling of like, we're going to save these 6 people, but there's still 2 people out there. So, I think that was the thing I was like, the most impressed with our crew was how we were able to like do those 6 hoists at the end quickly and efficiently, after kind of being so emotionally drained from that 2-hour search for those people that we unfortunately couldn't find.
Yeah, the hoists were almost like an afterthought of the case. Like that was always a known. We were going to do the hoist, and that was going to be pretty straightforward. I think that just kind of spoke to like the adrenaline and the training. It was everything else that kind of played into that case. That was just okay, we have to take care of that. Like we know what our priorities are. And that, like, I think that speaks to what Sam spoke to, is like when you're on these cases of figuring out what is the priority of the mission right now. Yeah. Can I be most effective with the resource that I'm providing? And I think that with the situation and the hand that we were dealt, we did the best that we could with the limited resources, being the only show in town for that initial on-scene response.
Yeah. I think this is the first time I've ever actually heard where, like, Mike, you going down to a raft or a swimmer going to a raft and be like, you guys are good. We're going to go look for the other 2. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know of any other story that's been like that. And I will agree with you. They are totally secure. They're good. You got 2 guys, you got max fuel or whatever you have at that moment in time. I think that's a great call, but I don't know if I have heard any of the stories like that. Have you guys?
It kind of all just fell together. Like the conditions of the weather were great. The life rafts looked brand new. Gumby suits were on, all 6 of them. We weren't going to lose sight of them. We were going to stay within the general area of the search. So
winds are pretty calm too.
Yeah. It was
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It wasn't an emergency pickup by any means, but it wasn't really. There was no like talking amongst ourselves like, hey, what are we going to do? It was like as soon as we heard that radio call on the helicopter from Mike that like, hey, there's 2 people still in the water.
Yeah.
6 people are safe in the rafts. It was an immediate.
Yeah.
Let's get Mike back in the aircraft. Let's start searching. It was like all 4 of us were on the exact same page of like, these people are safe. There are 2 people that are potentially not safe, and then, like I think that
the fastest, most efficient thing we can do is get Mike back in the aircraft and not waste time with these 6 people that are fine. Like trying to find somebody else is the priority right now. Yeah. And that's talking about the priorities.
Yeah.
It was just everybody was like wildly in sync on the priorities on what we needed to do.
Yep.
Yeah. After I passed that information, I just see the bear hook coming down. I was like, all right, we'll be back. So I just jump in, I sprint to the hook, hook up.
Awesome.
Start searching.
And there was no question from the survivors. Like, they're like, yes, please go.
Yeah.
Like, we're fine.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be okay. Like, you need to do this for, like, this is what's most important right now.
Yeah. And just to add on to, like, the emotional side of that case, right? Like, as we're searching for these other people in this huge debris field that's kind of surrounding these rafts, you just see all 6 of them standing up in the rafts, just watching us search. And so, that kind of adds on to it. You like got these people that are, watching us search for their friends, and we're just like, we're coming down into hovers over top of, debris, looking at it. And I have to imagine from their perspective that every time they see that, they get a little bit of hope that, we found their friends.
Yeah.
And I remember like looking over at them in the raft and just thinking like, that's gotta be terrible for them to watch us do that, So, I mean, it was one of those cases where, 6 lives saved, but it's almost, a little bit tainted by, 2 people that we couldn't save. So,
you literally go from one max extreme emotion to a max extreme other emotion. Yeah. All in like 17 hours too, because you're already max extreme from a great outcome of a previous rescue.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Dude, all right. So what a brilliant idea. Go out there and search. Dang. Wow. I'm blown away with that. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No, I am sorry that like two guys got lost. I get it. It's part of what we have to deal with and what, shit happens. And I'm sorry that had to happen. They lost too, but hey, 6 guys are alive today because you guys went out to go get them. So can ride on. Wow. Sam, you said it. It was the beginning of a really good deployment.
I don't think any of us knew, how crazy it was going to be. I mean, it was just like I think it's been said a couple of times. It was just all so quick too. So, a 2-week period down there. Our first hoist was, I think, on a Friday. And then it was like 2 days later, we were doing all these hoists. So, it's just like, it's just hot and heavy. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well done. Dude, no sleep. Monster and Red Bull. Let's go. MREs. Let's go.
That's
man.
That we've broken out our water reviews in the back of the aircraft on a single deployment. I was telling Sam, because I had been stationed in Clearwater from 2016 to 20, and I spent probably 275 days deployed down there, and I had never ever seen of the volume and like the volume of SAR in that short amount of time ever happen. That still ranks of all my deployments the most intense period of time I've had on a trip down there. I think just in general, like 2-week period of time in the Coast Guard of just outside of hurricane relief, like this was a lot.
Yeah.
Which I think
that
the light portion of this conversation, I was joking with Sam, he's recently gone back on deployments. And I think he has this expectation that, it's always going to be like this, and it isn't. So I think it's like measuring those. I'm so grateful that you've had those experiences early on in your career, because it's giving you stuff to kind of have a baseline. So when you do go through those situations, you can kind of draw on that, but it's definitely not been the same sort of experience. Yeah.
That's probably because you guys haven't all gone down as a crew again. If you guys went down as a crew again, it would. That's how that shit rolls.
That's always the joke. Back here, we're always joking like, "Oh, it's going to be a rough duty period."
Yeah. Mike and I have some stories. We were stationed in Kodiak together as well, and we've got some good ones. But this one, I still think is up there.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome, you guys. You actually had one more in that deployment, and go ahead, walk us into that one if you don't mind. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Axnis. The Axnis PNG wireless ICS system delivers cutting-edge wireless ICS technology to any aircraft as a fully integrated system or as a carry-on, carry-off mobile base station. The PNG wireless system is the right solution for any mission.
And
Blue Drop Training and Simulation. Blue Drop Training and Simulation for equipping your team with essential training solutions, including highly interactive courseware and advanced VR/MR simulation training tools. Explore more of Blue Drop's training solutions at bluedropts.com.
Sure. Same thing. We received a report from our controlling agency, District Southeast, or the Southeast District reported that there was a medevac required of a kind of a young adult that was on a merchant mariner sailing vessel, about 200 feet or so.
Yeah. So it's actually Texas A&M. They have like all the other maritime schools. You got like SUNY Maritime, Merchant Marine kind of stuff. Well, Texas A&M has one of those as well, and it's a pretty cool boat. I can't remember exactly how big it was. I think it was a converted old freighter, that they use as their training boat.
Yeah. So there was a request for medevac for appendicitis. So and it was just on the other side of outside of Cuban waters, because we're very close to Haiti and Cuba. But the vessel was making its way down to the Windward Passage, which is between those two countries. We arrived on scene, and like you talk about training, we rolled right into our briefs to assess the situation, how we were going to get Mike down there, and ended up doing a harness deployment to get Mike onto effectively like their flight deck on the back of the boat. We definitely had an audience because, there's a bunch of teenagers that are, on their summer cruise training trip. So you got 100 phones all watching you from the rafters of this boat.
Don't mess it up, Mike. Don't mess it up, Mike. I should say the same thing as Zach. Don't mess it up, Zach.
I think that was the funniest part. In the right seat hoisting, I'm almost eye level with everyone that's on like the flying, like one of the upper decks, and it's at least 150, 200, college age kids with their phones out, just watching you. And so I'm sitting there hoisting, looking right at them, and they're all just videotaping us doing it. I'm like, no pressure, right? Like,
yeah. Mike went down, assessed the patient. He was still ambulatory, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was still able to walk, but barely. He was in a lot of pain. He couldn't even hold his little backpack. Like I had to grab his backpack. We also brought the ship's dock with us.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hoisted him up first, and then I got the appendicitis patient in the basket. Got him up.
We flew to Guantanamo. The naval hospital there. They have a helipad, and then transferred.
Oh, nice.
So, I think
right on.
The doc had been in the Navy before, and he'd actually worked at. It was just a real kind of weird, kind of random sequence of events. So he's like, oh, I was like lived here, I did this, and just kind of cool, but totally random. But yeah, that was the start of our trip. When we were pretty jazzed, and that was a great way to start. And then lo and behold, a couple days later is when everything started to kick off. But that almost felt like a previous trip. Like it was that period of time was like two different events in that same 2 week period.
I think the craziest part was, we joked about Scott saying there wasn't going to be any SAR, and we get this, straightforward medevac, nothing crazy at all about it. And we're all like, oh, I guess the streak's broken. We got some good SAR. And had no idea, like 2 days later, it was going to be absolutely crazy. Good warm up for us.
Yeah.
Oh, love it. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing that. I've got one more question for you, and that is, out of your 2 week deployment and the stuff that you guys did, what is a good after action report that you can pass on to everybody else?
For me, this was a pretty eventful trip, that I had that I'd never had before in my Coast Guard career. Really flying for it to be that, busy in that period of time is, it's really easy on these cases to get the adrenaline going and to, want to jump to the first thing you think of is the thing you're going to do. And in a lot of cases that was the case and it worked out well, but, the focus on your basics and your training, all those small skills that you do day to day, like I'm going to go do a hoisting flight today and work on getting better in different conditions, different heights, so that when you are put in those situations, you have the ability to be able to react and stay calm under pressure. And really, I'll also mention just get really good of having those conversations. Sometimes it's hard. I think, Sam mentioned when you're on those SAR cases to inject that realism so that the pilot that's sitting in the right seat is having a good conversation with Zach as a flight mechanic or Mike to talk through those things. What should we do? Like, hey, simulated, there's oil in the water, this piece of debris, like really talk through those things. So when you find yourselves in those, one in a million situations that you've at least thought about or talked about it. I think that's the big thing after action, looking back on, I kind of said to myself, this is why, as much as I kind of sometimes will want to roll my eyes, like that's not going to ever happen. I'm grateful for some of those kind of out there scenarios because it gets your brain thinking in other ways. That's my feedback. So.
Right on. Sam?
Yeah, I swear I thought of this before Scott just said it, but yeah, almost the exact same thing. Like, you never know when that's going to happen, right? Like we went into that deployment joking like, hey, this is going to be, it's either going to be nothing or it's going to be a lot, all this kind of stuff. And you just never know. It could be the duty crew today has the craziest case ever. And I think a lot of times, those cases are a little bit few and far between. You get your standard medevacs and you get your, I won't call them easy, but relatively easier cases, and you can kind of rest on, just the basics. And exactly like what Scott said, like, you go through these lulls in SAR, I guess, personally, right? You may not have a case for a while. And so you get tired of doing, just hoisting flight after hoisting flight training, right? And you just never know, like what we had to do is just kind of like, you never know when you're going to be emotionally drained, physically drained, the weather's going to be bad. And just like maintaining that level of, I'm doing this training now, so that way when the situation happens, it's just instinct, kind of like it was for us, and I think that was the biggest thing I took away. I obviously haven't had any cases as good since, so I kind of draw on that experience to like motivate me, like, hey, we're gonna go out and hoist today. I'm gonna do this so that a year from now, it's the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's perfect. Nice, thanks, Zach. What about you, especially as a hoist operator and basket hoist after basket hoist, harness deployment after harness deployment, getting people in cabin ready to go? What's your takeaway from it?
Yeah, so I mean, we train all the time doing, basket hoist, swimmer hoist, all that stuff. It's different crews every time. Same helo, but different crews. And it's cool about the Coast Guards. You can go anywhere and hoist with a different crew, and it's all standard kind of stuff we do. It doesn't matter who the pilots are, who the swimmer is. You all are on the same page pretty much, no matter where you go. I think down there, our crew is extremely dialed in that aspect. There was no mishaps happen, nothing like that. But yeah, we train all the time for the stuff that we did down there. When it finally happens, like Sam said, it's just instinct. And it just it's like second nature to you, and that's why we train the way we do.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. It's actually just kind of dawned on me. I think I might even steal it from my own training scenario and pack like 6-7 people in the back of the cabin and say, hey, go figure this. Go hoist another couple more. Bring it. See what you can do. How you going to manage the cabin. I think I might steal that from you, actually. Your real case, I'm going to turn into training. You can do the same, okay? All right, Mike, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, training's going to kick in when it needs to. It was very fluid when we were out there, like we've all mentioned in this interview. We didn't even really have to discuss too much once I was down there with the survivors. It was just, I didn't have to signal for the basket every time and thumbs up, I'm ready for pickup. It was just up in the basket, swam back to the raft, grabbed another guy, swam back, and it was just like basket. So
that's a good flight mech right there.
Right.
Throwing that out there, Zach. I got you.
Like as a crew, we work so well together, but it's because we do the day-to-day here in Clearwater, the RT2s, RT4s, back to back, day by day. So when it does happen, it's very fluid and there's no hiccups, hopefully.
Dude, awesome. You guys, thank you again for coming on and sharing these stories. Well done on your deployment, and a major congratulations for earning yourself the Vertical Magazine's Blades of Valor recognition. So I am super pumped that you guys came on to share this. Thank you so much for joining me and really like enlightening us of everything that you've got. So well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And as soon as I get down to Clearwater, I'm calling all of you. We're going out to celebrate together. Okay. That's how we do it vertical.
This is real, I mean, the thing I was going to mention is like, part of it is also like what we're doing is talking about it. So like you have these big cases is to talk with in pilot trainings or rescue swimmer trainings to talk about what was going through your head. That's the big thing. The push right now is every case that a crew has, as small as they might seem, to get that information, because it's fresh, especially when you first do it, it's freshest to write that statement of action. Like we wrote that statement of action within a day of everything happening. So it's that, that's how people get better. Build that corporate knowledge, kind of that term.
Yeah.
Is just having those conversations to help people build that resiliency without having to actually go through what you went through, but at least you can share those stories so that they can learn.
Well, it brings up other ideas too. Like as you start talking to me, like, you know what, if we had done this, like I had a case like that and I could have done this that way. Like, again, I had never heard of like going down to a raft, be like, all right, you got 2 more guys. We'll be right back. You guys are good. I've never heard a story like that. It's awesome. So somebody else can take that and be like, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's take advantage of the fuel we have. Don't waste time here. Let's go find them. If they're in need, we'll go get them. Brilliant. So right on. Love it, guys. Love it. Again, thank you. I look forward to coming down and hanging out with you in person. Until then, you guys stay safe, fly safe, and swim hard.
Thanks, Quinn.
See you.
Anytime. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go!
Now, it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at the Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Blue Drop Training and Simulation. Blue Drop Training and Simulation for equipping your team with essential training solutions, including highly interactive courseware and advanced VR/MR simulation training tools. Explore more of Blue Drop's training solutions at bluedropts.com. Axnis. The Axnis PNG wireless ICS system delivers cutting-edge wireless ICS technology to any aircraft as a fully integrated system or as a carry-on, carry-off mobile base station. The PNG wireless system is the right solution for any mission.
And
SpectroLab. SpectroLab, a pioneer and world-leading supplier of high-intensity searchlights for all para-public operations. Visit www.spectrolab.com to learn more about our third-generation Night Sun series high-intensity searchlight. When reliability and performance is critical to your mission, count on SpectroLab Night Sun searchlights.
I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I feel like a podcast that's on a helicopter-specific platform, like the Vertical Helicast, I feel like the podcast host should at least be a helicopter pilot, not this guy in the back. I mean, what is he even doing back there? Oh, I'm Jason, rescue swimmer 500. I mean, like, so? Is it that hard? I mean, look, if Ashton Kutcher could do it, I mean, I feel like anyone can do it. So, cool, dude. Number 500. How about you actually fly helicopters for once? Just saying.